Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Christie Clemons Hoffman. She is an intuitive Reiki Master Channel and Level 3 QHHT practitioner based in Kansas City. In this episode, we'll discuss her work with quantum healing hypnosis technique. This allows us to access past memories to gain insights and facilitate healing on physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. Christie, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Johnny. It's a pleasure.
You have many intuitive skills: mediumship, Akashic records, angel readings. That's just to name a few. What came first?
The angel stuff. Honestly, the angel readings and connecting with people's guides. That was the first skill that I developed. And then I was working with a teacher. Her name is Gail Larmer. She's here in the Kansas City area. And then she started teaching about connecting with extraterrestrial guides. And so that was my next step. And then a little bit of mediumship. And then I did the Akashic records, and then Reiki. And then I became a Reiki Master, and then added on QHHT, added on medical intuition and...
Medical intuition, all right. So this is probably the first time I've heard someone tell me that the angel readings or the angel events or the encounters were the first thing that kind of opened up the metaphysical world. What were some of those first experiences like? What did they look like? Were they humanoid or...
Bear in mind, angel is a broad category. Now, I've got a podcast called Real Life Angel Encounters, and it's a broad category. Anything that's going to be positive, uplifting, spiritually connected, I do consider this as angelic or spiritual. And so with the readings, as they first developed, it was people's guides talking to me, telling people what they needed to know. So I was receiving messages from their guides, from their guardian angel, from their archangel, from the ascended masters with them, even the loved ones that are with them. They can be our guides as well. And so I was just finding all types of information that they needed to know from their guides.
Okay. Now, is there some kind of overlap between, let's say, the angels and the ETs? Like you mentioned, extraterrestrial guides.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually got another podcast called Radiate Wellness. And on that podcast, I had Nigel Watson. Oh, no, actually, he was on Real Life Angel Encounters. But anyway, Nigel Watson is a UFO researcher and has been for decades. And he had written an article and a chapter in a book about the overlap between angels and extraterrestrials. And extraterrestrials, for the most part, they have non-physical aspects. So we always think of them as physical beings, but they're also non-physical at the same time. Much like we are. We've got our soul, which is our non-physical part of us. But ETs also can serve as guides across planets and dimensions through their non-physicality. So there is a lot of overlap. On the Real Life Angel Encounters podcast, I covered a story about Russian cosmonauts in the 80s who had angelic visits outside of their space station. They all saw these beings. And so we know that the veil between angels and aliens and non-spiritual extra-dimensional, it's in flux, right? We're working with all of them, if that makes any sense at all. I know it's hard to wrap our mind around because we tend to think of that we have not really pigeonholed, but we have definitions. We have the delineation between different types of beings, but really it's all one. We're all one.
I've had someone who told me she had a visitation when she was young by a being that looked like something out of Snow White. Later on, when she was working with some other intuitives, she was told that was an extraterrestrial shapeshifter, and what they do is they take on an appearance that won't scare you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Dolores Cannon writes about that in The Custodians, her book, The Custodians, which is the entry point into her extraterrestrial stuff and off-planet information that she's gathered. So in The Custodians, she talks about, it's called screen memories, that they'll show up in different forms. I've had clients come in where, they'll show up as maybe a clown, or there was one person, they showed up as which for some people would think is scary. Somebody had been visited by a large penguin, very large penguin in their room at night, which was an extraterrestrial. So these screen memories can present in a way so that they're non-threatening.
Have there been visitations by non-friendly types of ETs, or is that a discussion for another day?
That may be a discussion for another day. Honestly, I've really only seen that once. This was a client, and this is something that she told me during the intake for a hypnosis session. But she had walked into her kitchen, and here's a reptilian standing in her kitchen who looked just as surprised as she was to see her. So in her session, we asked her higher self, what was that? And the higher self said, you weren't supposed to see that. That was basically a time slip, a dimension slip. And you two shared the same dimension at the same time. That was not supposed to happen. That's why they were just as surprised.
That's why the reptilian was as surprised as she was.
Yeah.
And I've also been told that not all reptilians are of the malevolent kind or type.
No, I have done several research sessions to find out all the different types of extraterrestrials there are. In a couple of sessions, the client went to the Galactic Federation and looked in the meeting room. There were amphibian types, reptilian types, but different types of reptilian types. Some were more like the Komodo dragons, some were more like geckos. And then the canids. So there was a friendly Labrador face versus a wolf or hyena face, and different types of felines as well. And you were mentioning the Egyptians. We see this in ancient Egyptian art. There's different gods who have different types of feline faces or bird faces or canine or different types of cold-blooded creatures. So yeah, there are different types of reptilians too.
Right, which leads us to believe, and this isn't the first time I've heard this, that those creatures depicted in ancient Egyptian art actually did exist, half human, half animal. They were most likely ETs or some kind of hybrids, I would think.
There is a very interesting session on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/radiate wellness. And it is of an alien attack. This client had gone back to a lifetime in ancient Egypt, and it was a man in the current lifetime, but in that life, he was a woman and the daughter of the ruler in this region. Her father, the ruler or the pharaoh, was forcing the people to build these pyramids and was working them too hard, working them to death. The daughter did not like this and had him poisoned. You cannot make this stuff up. I've seen this many times, actually. But she then assumed his position after he was gone, and she didn't make the people work as hard. She was kinder, more benevolent to the people. The extraterrestrials did not like that. They wanted their pyramids built. And the extraterrestrials came down in ships and decimated the population. These extraterrestrials, when they came down, they were bird-headed. And that immediately made me think of Horus and, oh God, who else? Tote. And he's an ibis. And then there's Horus, who's a falcon head. There are different deities with different types of bird heads. And I didn't get a lot of detail on what type of heads these extraterrestrials had, but they were bird heads. And you can hear about all of this in that session story on YouTube.
Speaking of the pyramids, did you ever witness a session with a client where they saw the pyramids being built with special powers, not just blood and sweat?
Oh, yeah. That's something I've seen several times in QHHT sessions. And if anybody's listening who doesn't know what QHHT is, that refers to quantum healing hypnosis technique. And this is a technique developed by Dolores Cannon to access other lifetimes, could be past, could be concurrent, could be future, could be between all these different lifetimes, plus accessing your higher self for guidance and healing. Anyway, yes, I've seen this many times in sessions that they'll use sound to levitate the rocks and move them. They'll use just non-specified extra sensory type of tools to achieve this. Yeah.
the myth that they were all built with blood, sweat, and tears or whatever. That does not seem possible.
Let me specify, in the session that I'm talking about with the bird-headed extraterrestrials, the way that the Pharaoh was making these people work was like without breaks and in the hot sun with no accommodations and not feeding them and making them work all day and into the night, that type of thing. Not necessarily physical labor, but that's an important distinction as long as we're talking about this.
Speaking of QHHT, what prompted you to become a practitioner?
Dark night of the soul, basically. It was the end of my marriage, and I was devastated. I was looking for meaning. I started Googling, searching for soulmates, past lives, etc. I knew there was some bigger picture at play. And I found Dolores Cannon. She seemed to have all the answers that I needed in terms of, is this karmic? What other connections have my spouse and I had? I thought, you know what? That's what I need to do, is I need to have a session with her. And I thought, okay, I'll have my mom watch my kid. She was in Arkansas, which is about 5 hours from me. And I thought I can go down one afternoon, spend the night, have a session, come back. That's going to work out great. So I called the office for Dolores Cannon. I said, yes, I would like to schedule a past life regression with Dolores Cannon. And they said, she's booked up for 4 years. I didn't know she was Dolores Cannon, okay? Right? I was thinking I'd like to get in before then. And they said, well, you are in luck because she's just started teaching people how to access her method and use it. Maybe you can find someone in your town or at least near you to have a session with. And I went on the website and I found someone near me about a mile down the road. And my husband and I both went in. And honestly, to tell you the truth, Johnny, neither one of us got very far with it. So he got a little bit of a glimpse. I just started laughing because this practitioner was ridiculous and didn't get very far. But like you, I believed in it. I believe that there were answers and I believe that people can access it. So I just set that on the back burner. This practitioner near me said, okay, this doesn't happen very often, but if it ever does, I have someone I can refer you to. And he referred me to my teacher, Gail. I went to her and I had a fantastic reading. She put so many things into place for me. I sent several of my friends to her. They had great experiences. And then she started teaching classes. I took all of the classes that she was teaching and started working with clients on my own. And I started meeting people in this metaphysical realm around me here in the Kansas City area. And I was meeting people who were doing energy work. I had no idea what energy work was. And I thought, that's what I need to learn how to do because I need to know this stuff. And so I took my Reiki 1, Reiki 2, started seeing Reiki clients. And with that came medical intuition that I later developed and got certified in. But I was working with people all around the country with Reiki. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, oh, this QHHT thing is so interesting. I was working corporate at the time. I was at Hallmark. The Hallmark headquarters are here in Kansas City, international headquarters. And I was working at Hallmark and I got laid off with 1,000 other people at the same time. And by then I knew that I didn't want to do a corporate job anymore. It was killing me. And I was already seeing clients outside of work. And I thought, that's what I want to focus on. And I want to start a wellness center. And I didn't have the capital to have a brick and mortar. So I started a virtual wellness practice, Radiate Wellness. The same week that I launched the website and officially launched the business, I also went down to Eureka Springs and took my level 1 training. It was insanity. I don't know what I was thinking. But that's when it was offered. And I always believed in QHHT, and I knew then I wanted to become a practitioner. So yeah, I started my level 1 journey in 2017. Yeah. 2018, I took my level 2. And 2019, I took the level 3 class and then got passed to be level 3 in 2020.
So it took a little bit over 3 years.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the angel readings. Is that kind of like an adjacent practice to QHHT, or do you actually practice them together?
No, you cannot practice anything with QHHT.
That's what I thought.
QHHT is standalone. So no aromatherapy, no Reiki, no sound healing, or no other practices can be done alongside QHHT. Now, I will say that I know myself and many other practitioners that I know, we're intuiting what's going on with the client in a session. So we're visualizing and seeing and experiencing these things along with them. And I have to play completely dumb and just ask naive questions to guide them deeper into their experiences. But I am feeling, seeing, experiencing these things along with them. And many other practitioners tell me that as well. So the intuitive gifts do come in handy with it. So it's more adjacent. There is a package that I offer that you have one reading, one Reiki session, and a QHHT session, but those can't be done on the same day. I can do the reading and the Reiki on the same day, but not anything else with QHHT.
Now, being a medium, you just mentioned that in a session that you can visualize things. Does the mediumship give you things that non-intuitives cannot during a session?
Honestly, the short answer I think is yes. The longer, more in-depth answer is that we all have these intuitive gifts. Each one of us, to a person, we all have it. These gifts turn on in various ways during various situations. Even in every session, I'm not always seeing what the client is seeing or experiencing what they're experiencing. I'd say most of the time, but not all of the time. But I think even someone who does not consider themselves to be an intuitive or a medium or a psychic of any type is a lot more intuitive than they think, and probably intuits a lot more than they think they are. So they have other insights that are coming into.
Past life experiences, especially of the ancient civilizations, like you spoke of ancient Egypt a moment ago. It seems to be that some of these people will say that hyperintuition or mediumship or telepathy were perfectly normal. This is thousands of years ago. That would support what you just said, which, by the way, every medium has told me that anyone can do this, but you have to work on it.
I think of it like singing. When you're born, you can open your mouth and sound will come out. And pretty much everybody can do this. Now, some people are more naturally gifted at singing and making a pleasing sound when they do that, and some people are not. Same with our intuitive abilities. We're all born with it. Some of us are more naturally attuned to it right off the bat than others are. However, just like singing, we can take lessons, we can work on improving our singing and our tone and our quality and our breath work, and we can improve. And same thing with intuitive gifts. We can work on that. We can meditate and do practices and really try to hone our intuition so we can improve in that way too. And then just like singing, there are some people who are never really able to carry a tune no matter what they do. And some people feel like they're as intuitive as a stone, but they might surprise themselves sometimes.
Inanimate objects are supposed to be alive as well.
I have seen people be stones in other lives.
Oh, that's crazy.
I know.
I've heard the same thing. And I've heard that we could have had past lives as animals.
Oh, yeah.
I had one gentleman told me that he was a blade of grass. All right. So I guess anything is really possible. I've also been told by other practitioners that you only need one QHHT session. Could be 5 or 7 hours, but it's not like you have to come back every week for 6 months, like traditional therapy.
No, people ask all the time, how many sessions do I need? Usually it's just one and done. Now, occasionally people will leave the session and think, that was so interesting. I wonder what else there is. And they might want to have another session. Or they'll say, oh, now I've got even more questions that they would want to ask of their higher selves. Now I want to know what more there is. Or that I've had a couple people who have said, now that I know what it feels like, I think I can go even deeper and connect even more. So sometimes they will tell me that they want to do that.
More like the outlier, though.
Yeah. Typically it's one and done.
Now, as part of the session, is there always a life review?
Oh, yeah. Well, when there's a physical death, when there's an actual death. In the case of a stone, someone who's a rock, there's not really a death, but we just decide that, okay, I think my consciousness has gotten everything that I need to get out of this experience. I'm ready for something else. Then they would withdraw that consciousness and move to something else. But at the end of every lifetime, there does need to be a review. Yeah. And when we have near-death experiencers, tell us about their experience. That usually includes a life review as well. It's very important. How did I do? Did I learn what I came to learn? Did I fulfill my purpose?
Okay, is the presentation of the life review, is it more like I'll see what I want to see, or is it three tall gentlemen in robes that look like it's the Council of Elders or something like that?
So the life review. Okay, that's a complicated question. I know it sounds like a simple question. The life review is a series of questions. What did you learn? What else did you learn? What do you feel the purpose was of that life? There's really nobody stepping in to interfere. This is a direct conversation with the client's higher self. However, no two sessions are alike. They don't go the same way. And there can be their counsel coming in. There can be other beings coming in to help with the life review. I've seen many things. Oh my goodness. Seriously, every session is different. I've seen multiple people, not just one, but several people who they're in a room full of like TV screens and there's different scenes from their life playing out. And that's their life review. And I'll say, okay, there's where I learned this. This screen is where I learned that. This one shows my purpose and how I fulfilled it. I've seen people, again, more than one, who describe looking over a valley. And sometimes when we look at a valley from an airplane, you can tell all the different fields and there are different colors and they're according to what's growing on each acre there. So like a quilt. So people have described this valley with a type of quilt overlay over it with each of the scenes of their life that they need to review.
That's pretty awesome to say the very least. Have you seen scenes of pre-birth planning? Casting the proverbial movie, or I'm going to be your husband, I was the wife last time, you're going to be the bad guy, you're going to be the guy that teaches me everything I need to know, etc., etc. Have you seen anything like that?
Oh, many times, many times. Sometimes people will be in that between space and go and say, oh, she's going to be my mom. Or, oh, that's where I'm going to live. Oh, yeah, we do that. It sounds crazy because we think, why would I set myself up to have this horrible relationship with my father? Why would I set myself up to lose my child tragically? But we do. And like you said, we can take turns being different roles for different people for the experience of it. You've probably heard of Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote Conversations with God, and one of those conversations with God got turned into a children's book, a beautiful children's book called The Little Soul in the Sun. And I think that book and that essay describes perfectly what happens when we make our life plan. Because two little souls make an agreement that one of them wants to learn forgiveness, so the other one has to do something really bad when they go back to being alive again. But they have to forget they ever had that conversation.
Where did I hear this quote? They have to drink from the river of forgetfulness before they come down.
Ooh.
I don't know where it's from. It might be Greek mythology. I'm not sure.
Now, Dolores Cannon used to say, what good is the test if you already know the answers?
And I believe she heard that from an ET. I saw that clip a while back.
Oh.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And I've also been told that it's not just for your own learning, but for the entire soul group. Every single person that has had insight into life between lives has told me it's like casting a movie. The Long Island Medium, quote, life is like an episode of Saturday Night Live. Everyone changes character and costumes, but at the end of the night, everyone hugs. And then this woman says yes. And then they go down to the bar and they have a beer and they congratulate each other on their performance.
I love that.
When Shakespeare was, I can't remember where it came from, but the quote is, all the world's indeed a stage. We are only players, performers, and portrayers.
Yeah, I think it's Hamlet. I liken it to the show Community. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. It's so hilarious. But it starts off with grown people in a community college, adult learners. And the first season is the first semester and they're all in Spanish class and they're failing miserably. So they form a study group. From all different walks of life, they form this study group. And every season they're in different classes, but they come together still for the study group. And that's how I see it. is that we're helping each other study. We're helping each other learn what we need to learn.
Earth is a school after all, isn't it? At least that's what I've been told. Speaking of study and learning, what are some of the most impactful points that QHHT can teach us?
That death is not the end, and there's nothing to fear with death. One of my favorite books by Dolores Cannon is Between Death and Life, and what happens in that between state, right? The life review and the plans for the next life. So I think that's really important. And I think it was Laurence Olivier said, dying is easy, comedy is hard.
John Lennon once said that, I don't believe in death. It's like getting out of one car and getting into another.
Yeah, a good friend of mine passed. She was living in a different country when she passed. I knew it was going to be happening, and I was expecting a call or a text anytime, literally anytime. She came to me. I was in the parking lot at the garden store loading up my car, and here she comes, and she goes, I never went anywhere. I just broke up with my body. And once I realized you could, it was ridiculously easy to do so.
Now, was that a visitation or was that a download or communication?
Yeah, it was a communication. I would call it a visitation. Yeah, she just popped into my head and into my vision, in my visual field. She said it exactly like she would have said it in life. So I was like, okay, I get it.
I'll tell you one really quick story. One of my brothers, my brother Bruce, passed from prostate cancer a few years back. And one of the last things I said over the phone was, instead of breaking down and crying and all that, because we're guys, we're not supposed to do that, I said, we'll be drinking beer again. And he said, you know we will. Because whenever I used to visit him, we'd go down to the corner store, get beer, sit on the porch, and talk about politics and all the other stuff we didn't agree on. And I had a dream of him not that long ago. And we're in a kitchen, we're at a party, and he looks at me and goes, Johnny, we're out of beer. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right, we are out of beer. What are the odds of that happening?
I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's really cool. So many of us have these dreams of our loved ones.
Yeah, we do. I think it's pretty common. But here's a question for, I guess, the skeptical person, which is a lot of us. How do we know that's not our imagination?
First of all, is it positive? Is it helpful? Does it answer some questions? Does it help us to heal our grief or to move on? These dreams, the ones that are really visitations, are the ones that seem more real than real. There might be details that just feel so real. It's like you feel like you could touch them. You could feel like this is exactly what they would have said, or this is a situation that exactly would have happened. Did it happen? No, but it could have. Just like being in the kitchen and saying, hey, Johnny, we're out of beer. That was very typical. In those like more real than real dreams, I guarantee it's a dream visitation. But you know what? If you're skeptical and you're like, oh, I think I was just wishful thinking. I think I made it up. Did it help you? Did it make you feel connected?
Oh, yeah. No question.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Was it real or not? We know it's really our intuition.
I think one of the main benefits of mediums is that they can at least give us the comfort that consciousness does survive, as do the near-death experiencers. Same thing. What are some of your favorite stories of your session work with QHHT?
Oh, that could take so many different avenues. Are you talking ETs? Are you talking historic? Are you talking, what are you talking?
We could start with the ETs. I think it's relevant now because we're hearing a lot about disclosure. So are there aliens? I don't think that's even a question anymore. And by the way, I've been told by a medium that they don't like being called aliens, at least the benevolent ones, because alien means apart and they do not feel apart.
Extraterrestrial. They're just not of Earth. And some of them are of Earth. Okay, so let's do this. So for a while, I'd say a good couple of years, I was doing some research into the different types of extraterrestrials. And in one session, this is so cool. In one session, the client was talking about being in an extraterrestrial in a colony under the ocean and ships coming in and going out. All of a sudden, the app that I was using to record, it showed the sound waves so that you could check your levels. All of a sudden, it was blown out. And I mean, the entire screen was white, blown out. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is happening here? So I stopped the recording. I was trying to keep the client under. I started a new recording and was picking up where we left off. Tell me more. What's it like under the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. And the sound waves were not as blown out, but they were still pretty blown out. So there was a solid band of white. We can imagine what those sound waves so close together would look like. After the session, I sent the first recording off to somebody who knows and does sound analysis to see what happened here. What was that? And they said, where did this come from? This is the type of waves that you would get in like a submarine under the ocean. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That was really cool. So that is one such.
Very below the seafloor. We've all heard stories of that. Antarctica and bases.
I'm endlessly curious. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. What is the significance of that? And I'm also practical. I'm a very practical person. So I rule out the obvious things. Is there a malfunction with the iPad? I was using a clip-on microphone at the time. Is there interference with the microphone? Afterward, I did some tests and I couldn't replicate it. I'm looking at things like, okay, did the power go? I don't know. I look at all of the typical physical type of things first. And then I start to get really curious. I just think having an open mind and being open to whatever possibility. Dolores Cannon used to say, everything that you can imagine and even things that you cannot imagine are actually real and happening.
We're about to go down a rabbit hole here, but there's just so much more to explore once you dive into this world. We've heard of people that say, I was Cleopatra. I was this famous person. And I'm thinking, can there really be that many valid cases of people actually being someone famous? But then I started to learn about how we can possibly share lifetimes with other people, parallel realities and so on and so forth. So is it possible, for instance, that 5 different people can say, I had a lifetime as John Adams or George Washington?
Yeah, excellent question. Now, most of the lifetimes we're going to see in any type of regressive hypnosis are going to be what Dolores called potato digger lives. You're born, you squeeze out a couple of kids, you dig a bunch of potatoes, and you die. The vast majority are those. Now, the most famous lifetimes that I have seen, I mean, I've seen several who were rulers, but could you point out who they were? No, not necessarily. Not well known enough to be written in history books. I've seen many rulers, but probably the most famous, Cleopatra's sister, Stephen Neal, who wrote the 14th Amendment. Yeah. The thing is, he wrote it, but he was not a legislator. So he wrote it and passed it to his friend who was a senator who got it passed, but he was the author of it. Stephen Burgess, who's a hypnotist he was originally from the UK. Now he's in Florida. He actually wrote a book called Famous Past Lives about a handful of people who have had those lifetimes. Okay. But your question is about shared existences. Now, Dolores, in one of her books, I want to say maybe one of the Convoluted Universe books in that series, talks about some of the souls coming to the earth who don't have that earth experience or as much earth experience may get up to speed by looking at many different lifetimes. And this could be someone who's well known. So it's basically you're visiting these lives to learn what it's like to be human and learn this common history, this common knowledge, just to get us up to speed. So that's a possibility as well. And honestly, our souls, we are so infinite. We have so much potentiality that I would not rule anything out at all, even having so-called shared lives. Now, I've also seen something called concurrent lives, and that gets a little trippy. So this will be a client in a session who they go to a lifetime that seems like it's modern day Earth. They've got a job, they drive a car, they work in a building, they go to the gym, all of the different things from modern life. And you think, how is this possible? I'm looking at what year they were born. The math is not mathing, right? But this is absolutely possible. Just like we're having all of our different lifetimes right now through the nature of time, we can have more than one lifetime going on in a concurrent timeline. I think of it like the old men in
it's parallel lives.
Parallel lives, right. I think of it like the old men in the park. They have more than one chess game that they're playing. So it's just getting more bang for your buck. And so why not right? Because I want to get as many experiences as I can. I want to learn all the things that I can while I'm physical. So why not have more than one physical lifetime going on?
So Benjamin Franklin might have had several different parallel lives inhabited by different people that have memories of those lives. As I mentioned before, there's definitely going to be a part 2 to be continued. Christy, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. Excellent stuff. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
RadiateWellnessCommunity.com, YouTube.com/radiate, and 2 podcasts, the Radiate Wellness Podcast and the Real Life Angel Encounters Podcast as well.
You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. In the meantime, you can find more information on closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.